Hello and welcome. You're watching The Big Fight, a show that is young at 22, the oldest running debate show on Indian news television. I'm Ananya Panday. Drugs, drug bust, seizure, all of this is in the news again, almost a year after it was in the news initially. In the Aryan Khan case, a sessions court has rejected his bail and this matter has moved to a higher court. In the meanwhile, actress Ananya Panday, who is now also being questioned in connection to this case, 2 rounds of questioning has already happened. Another will happen on Monday. The law as laid out is the same for all. So at the risk of repeating, we say it again, punishment commensurate to the crime is the law of the land. And in that context, the law must take its own course. While a larger point is being made on whether the NCB is hunting for soft targets and not going after the masterminds and the kingpins, there is now another debate. One that raises doubts on the NCB's probe itself. Senior Maharashtra leader Nawab Malik now alleges that this could be a case of extortion. He has levelled serious allegations against the zonal director of this agency, Mr. Sameer Wankhede. Mr. Wankhede, in an exclusive interview, has denied these allegations. But the big question is, these allegations are serious. So who will probe the probe agency now? Because extortion is a serious charge. It has become a case of drugs probe versus an extortion probe or an extortion charge. And even as the probe net widens, there is the same old question again of Bollywood's silence, of how they choose to remain silent, Bollywood's eerie silence, how powerful voices are screaming with their silence. I would like to introduce our first 2 guests this evening. Very special discussion here on the legal aspect of this entire matter. It's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Satyapal Jain, Additional Solicitor General of India. Thank you very much, Mr. Jain, for joining us, member of the BJP National Executive Committee. Majid Memon, senior leader of the NCP and also a senior advocate. Thank you very much, Mr. Memon, for joining us. It's very important to understand the legal position here. I want to begin with you, Mr. Jain. Law must take its own course. There is no dispute. But punishment has to be commensurate to the crime. It almost appears that in this case, in the Aryan Khan case, the punishment is much more than what the initial crime was. And the allegation is that now the NCB is manufacturing new crime.
See, you have rightly said, the punishment should be commensurate with the offence. But that stage is the last stage in any criminal trial. At this stage is only the investigation which is going on. The question is whether he has to be given bail or not. Whether he is guilty, how much he is guilty, what punishment should be given will be the last thing. And it is at that stage then you argue the matter that whether he is a first offender or he has done it earlier also, all these issues will come. See, don't forget one thing. NDPS Act is a special act which was enacted in 1985. There are 2 very important sections which should not be lost sight of. Section 29 and Section 37. Mr. Menon is a very senior legal lawyer and very expert on the criminal side. This act, Section 29 says, even if you have not committed any offence, but you are guilty of abatement or a criminal conspiracy, you are also responsible, liable for the same punishment. Section 37 says that when you apply for bail, the trial court will not grant bail unless the court is of the opinion that he is not guilty of such offence and that he is not likely to commit any offence while on bail. Second, these are the conditions which are in addition to the conditions laid down under the Criminal Procedure Code. In the present case, they have been charged with certain sections of the NDPS Act. They have been produced before the court. And a special court by 1918-20 pages order has rejected the bail petition, which is now subject matter before the Honorable High Court.
Yes.
I am really surprised why media, all channels are discussing this issue, which is one of the thousands of cases that the India is having.
Okay, now Mr. Jain, just to follow up before I go to Mr. Memon, because a senior member of his party has now alleged that this could be a possible case of extortion. Now, this is a very, very serious charge. I ask you, who will probe this probe agency now? Or the officer in question?
No. First is who is leveling the allegation. You can't level the allegation on the probabilities. But Parantu,
well, who's leveling? He is a minister in the Maharashtra government. As senior as that.
Then he should file a written complaint either before the senior most officer or before the special judge or to the High Court. He has to move somebody. Simply holding press conference nowadays, people want everything to be done in the press conference, in the debates. Number of cases are there when certain allegations were leveled against officers of different departments. Courts have taken action. The judges have taken action. Even the CBI has arrested.
Okay.
You must have been watching. In my region, custom department officer was arrested.
Okay, let me take that to Mr. Memon. Mr. Memon, can you hear me?
As per law, the complaint any officer, he will be tried and punished as per
Okay, let me ask that question of Mr. Memon. Majid Memon, can you hear me?
I'm hearing.
Satyapal Jain is saying, Mr. Jain is saying that if a senior member of your government, your party, is levelling allegations as serious as extortion, which have been, by the way, denied by Mr. Sameer Wankhede, then given the seriousness of this allegation, he must move court or relevant authorities
Sanket,
and move beyond a press conference.
I would answer this in the second part. The first part is the question of bail in NDPS matter. I have heard the learned ASG, and he has been right in pointing out certain provisions in law. But I think what I am going to say, my friend, the learned ASG will endorse that. And I don't think he has any option to disagree what I am saying now. And that is this, that refusal or denial of bail is never punitive in nature. It must not be considered as a part of punishment, thinking that the accused who is denied bail has to suffer. So the causing suffering or hardships to the accused by denial of bail is never meant by the principles of criminal jurisprudence. This is the first principle. Now, number two, and not only NDPS Act, which our friend has given even sections 29 and 37, there are similar statutes in our criminal law, like MCOC Act, UAPA Act, TADA, POTA, many other laws, where identical provisions with regard to, right to bail are provided. Same applies to NDPS Act. Now, presumption of innocence is not there, broadly speaking, is true. But it is not that in all cases of NDPS, the accused persons are languishing in custody for a long time and bail is totally taboo. It is not that way. Bail is being granted in appropriate cases. Now, when we come to Aryan's case, investigation, custodial interrogation of the accused is no more required. The argument advanced by the NCB before the special court was that he is an influential person from big family.
And he influenced the witnesses.
Evidence. He may
tamper
influence
evidence.
the witnesses. Temper evidence. Now, these arguments, unfortunately, do not bear sufficient strength to stand on their feet, because these are bald apprehensions without any substance. This man about whom we are talking has had no bad record or has criminal antecedents or nature of behaving in the manner that you would temper witnesses, etc. So this kind of a bald allegation.
But Mr. Memon, this is also a fact that all these issues were assessed by a court, and a court of law has taken a decision.
Not true. The special judge has certain powers, certain discretions, certain authority to grant or deny bail. The High Court has wider powers. And my friend ASG would agree when I say that above NDPS Act or above MCOC Act or above any such stringent piece of legislation, including UAPA, stands Constitution of India. And Article 21 of Constitution of India, which emphasizes personal liberty and life of every citizen, except by due process of law, which has to be fair. Supreme Court has expanded the reach of Article 21, and that is what is the ultimate.
Mr. Jain, would you like to respond?
Yeah, now one second. Let me also, thereafter we will have a pleasure of hearing our ASG. But let me just complete this. Sure. Now, he would certainly agree that bail is not to be stopped, for flimsy reasons. Now, in this particular case, this ground that he is likely to temper without any material to support this contention, I am afraid a judge with sufficient knowledge of law and wisdom may not accept that, particularly at High Court level. But then today what is happening, Sanket, is important, on which I want the learned ASG also to throw some light. What the investigating agency is doing is that they have slept for almost 2 weeks, and after 2 weeks now, when the matter is likely to come up before High Court for hearing a couple of days hereafter on Tuesday precisely, that they have opened up to calling Ananya, recording a statement for 4 hours, deferring it to Monday, so that again on Tuesday they will tell High Court, we are at a very delicate stage of investigation, certain more important material is just flowing in, and therefore releasing this man at this juncture may not be.
I think you've made an important point. Let me get a response. So you're saying that, yes. Mr. Jain, if I were to put whatever...
Now tell me, Sanket, you also answer. No, 1 minute, 1 second, half a minute. You also tell me, this WhatsApp evidence was available. Ananya Panday and his daughter's name was also known to the whole country from day 1 or day 2. Why did they wait for 2 weeks?
Okay, Satyapal Jain, I think the larger point that is being made over here is that a process is being used as punishment. It's very clear. And Mr. Memon has listed out 3 or 4 things, very precise, exact things. How would you respond?
Yes, Mr. Majid Memon in the very beginning very rightly said that denial of bail is not the question of punishment. He also very rightly said that bail can be granted in appropriate cases. That can be in any case, maybe of murder, maybe of custom, maybe of PMLA, maybe of any other case. But the inherent thing is, it ultimately lies within the discretion of the special judge who is dealing with that case. He has to record a finding. I request him and all concerned to kindly read 2 paragraphs of the order passed by the learned special court declining the bail. He says that I have gone through the WhatsApp chats. I have seen that he's a part of he's in touch with the drug traffickers across the country, international record. He's a part of that. I'm not blaming whether he's or not. The matter is still under investigation. Investigation is on. And unless the judge records a finding under section 37 that he is not guilty, can on the basis of this any judge say that he is not guilty? This is a special act enacted for dealing such situations. And I tell one thing more. Please, he has his own views. I have my own views. Accused has his own views. Both the sides have argued the matter. They have cited about 25, 30 judgments. I've got a copy of the order with me. The learned special court has taken everything into consideration. Ultimately, it is the judicial discretion, judicial conscience of the judge who has decided the case.
Mr. Memon, how would you respond to this?
There is no allegation. There is no allegation against him. The matter has gone to the High Court.
Mr. Memon.
NCB has not been judicial. It has been decided by the special court. High Court is listening to the matter, hearing this matter. They will decide one way or the other.
Supreme Court has invariably and repeatedly said that judicial discretion is something extremely important, and the learned judges are not like a free man who can just use his discretion according to his whim and caprice. The discretion is to be exercised judicially. Discretion is to be exercised which is answerable to principles of law. And you can't, as a judge sitting because you have discretion at the lower court, as a special judge or the trial judge, that I have discretion, therefore I don't like this person.
No, Mr. Memon, is that a case where you're putting in doubt the decision-making ability of a judge?
With respect to the learned judge, I was saying though, I'm an officer of the court, I'm bound to respect the judicial verdict, which is now valid, which is being shown by the learned ASG. But this is going to be examined now, the day after tomorrow, when the matter will come up before the High Court.
You will agree, thousands of people have been denied bail on the similar principles in the entire country. But media is discussing only 1 or 2 cases. I belong to Punjab and Haryana High Court. Because of the border state, thousands and thousands of people are facing trial under this act. And they are in jail for years together.
Now,
so going by the current law.
Now, Mr. Jain, just a minute, please. Mr. Jain, see, I have had the occasion to work as the Parliamentary Standing Committee for Law and Justice. This is very important thing which I am pointing out. Mr. Learned ASG will also kindly put it there what I am saying. A country's civilization can be best gauged by the effectiveness with which its criminal justice system functions. And to assess the degree of success of criminal justice, one has to turn to prisons. If prisons are overflowing with under-trial prisoners, it reflects very poorly as far as the success of criminal justice system is concerned. In our country, unfortunately, Arthur Road itself, we as the members of the Parliamentary Standing Committee visited Arthur Road Jail also, in addition to various jails in the country. And we had a very
alarming number of
disappointing
under-trial
record.
Yeah.
That under-trial prisoners are 80%, 75%, 90%.
Yeah.
Convicts are 10% or 15%.
Okay,
This
let me quickly take in a
very
response.
poorly. Just a minute. Now, I will tell you, my friend also and your viewers as well, that you see in the world, Netherlands stands above all other countries where prisons are being closed down. That reflects the success of criminal justice system. Of course, we can't compete with them. That is at number one. We may be
but we can certainly reduce the number of under trials. Mr.
But
Jain,
we must
right
ensure that as the crowd
which
in the
is
prison
why I asked
has
this
to be
question.
reduced.
Is
And
there a
therefore one has
tendency
be
to make
liberal
the
for
process as the punishment? That we are
liberal
following due
for
process?
bail. Invariably,
Mr.
in
Jain.
exceptional cases, keep somebody in custody.
See, so far as the situation described by the learned league is concerned, nobody can dispute that. Thousands and thousands people are facing the trial. But I will request my friend, he is in parliament, I am not. We are practicing the laws, the judges are interpreting the law which has been enacted by them. In case they feel, he is a member of the Parliamentary Standing Committee. I have been a member of Standing Committee on Home Affairs, where we discuss laws rising above party concentration. This is a larger issue where there should be a national debate. Let all parties come together to have a better law, but so long as the law is there.
We need
The
reforms.
only point being made here as I wrap up this discussion, thank you very much, Mr. Jain, as well as Mr. Memon. The process must not be made into a punishment. That is very, very clear. I'd like to thank both of you for joining us and introduce our next panel with Ms. Kanika Sadanand, actor as well as an advocate, Rahul Narvekar, BJP MLA and a lawyer, Fauzia Arshi, film director, PKD Nambia, political analyst, supports the BJP, and we have Sushil Shamlal Wadhwa, founder and CMD of the Platinum World Group, and also a well-wisher of the Shah Rukh Khan family. Thank you very much to all of you. I would like to begin with you, Mr. Wadhwa. How do you look at the goings-on? Now, the only point that we were making all this while was that if someone is guilty, you punish that person commensurate to the offence. But do you feel that there is a tendency now in this agency to make the process itself the punishment?
I think, Sanket, firstly, thank you for having me on the show. My take on the current situation is it's a mountain being made out of a molehill. Let's assume that if Aryan was indeed tested positive of consuming drugs, he was indeed found with possession of drugs on his body, which is currently a big question mark. Whether it's done or not done is another thing. Irrespective, I think in cases like this, like I'd mentioned yesterday, bail is a norm and jail is an exception. But now what's happening is jail is becoming a norm and bail is becoming an exception. He's been in custody from 2 weeks now. I'm not too much into law or learned. I'm just applying common sense. I'm just applying, as a father to, other children, or somebody in Shah Rukh's place as a father. If his son went to a party with friends, it was a tip-off. The NCB is doing its job with all due respect to them. In fact, they're probably being scrutinized so much on this that they are trying to trying to be so cautious that they're probably doing overboard on this thing. And I think what's happening in that case is, had it not been Aryan Khan, anybody else by now would have got bail. But because it's Aryan Khan, and if NCB gives them bail, they'll be questioned that, okay, Shah Rukh Khan's son got bail. Okay. If they don't give them bail, they're being damned any which ways. Okay. And the poor guy, Aryan Khan, is being subjected to being in jail for no rhyme or reason, which could have easily...
My only submission here is that in the eyes of the law, at this moment, he is an accused under investigation, right?
Yeah.
Now, whether he's being discriminated against or not, that is what is the subject matter of debate. But Mr. Narvekar, I want to come to you now. You see, there is a brand new allegation now of extortion. The NCP says that this is a case of extortion. You have no interest in making Mumbai drug free. I'm talking about the agency. The basic motive over here is chanda ugai, extortion.
Well, there's a saying in Marathi which I'll translate to English. A person who suffers from jaundice, to him the entire world appears yellow. So what the least said, the better about NCP. This is a party whose ministers have been accused of recovering haftas worth 100 crores per month. So they can only understand the hafta language. So every time someone takes action, they will obviously assume that it is being taken to recover some kind of hafta. So I'm not too surprised with NCP and its stands. They are used to the language of hafta and they are used to collecting haftas. So they feel everyone on earth collects haftas.
No, but don't you think that these allegations are serious? And if he actually has something, should he appeal in a higher court?
Please appreciate that this is an officer. Look at the credentials. I'm not here to defend the officer. I'm not here to defend an individual. I'm here to defend the institution. And if we start criticizing institutions and officers for at our whims and fancy, it's going to demoralize and destroy the systems in this country. This officer was earlier with the customs. He was brave enough to stand up against strong politicians, arrest and file cases against their relatives for bringing in goods without paying the duties. Then he was with the NIA.
My point is, one moment, if you are, Mr. Narvikar, if we are about to highlight impeccable track records of people, then Mr. Wadhwa would want to highlight the track record of the actor and his family in question. So if we go purely by the track record argument, then this is applicable to all, no?
Sanket,
the argument is legal.
Your question to me was with regards to an extortion scam that's happening within the NCB.
Yes.
And to which I was telling you, giving your reply that how it's not possible, and especially with regards to the kind of merits that the investigating body and its
Mr. Narvikar, if you are highlighting the question on merits, Kanika Sadanand, you see the point is, when you talk legal, then you can't be reading the law for one and then highlighting the merits of someone's personality or his track record for the other. Then the argument has to be on the same page. Then if you are talking about the impeccable track record of an officer, we also have to factor in a track record of the family. The law should be the same for everything, no, or everyone.
Yes, absolutely right, Sanket. Everyone is equal before the law. With regards to Samir Wankhere, I don't want to
the antecedent.
Yeah, Mr. Narvikar, one moment. That was for that question was for Ms. Kanika Sadanand. Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't believe in glorifying politicians or officers who do their work because that's their job. And at the same time, I don't believe in deriding them or demoralizing them because we all know that people like Samir Wankhere, they come from not very privileged backgrounds and they work hard to reach wherever they are. And every day they're fighting a system that defeats them at every step. Either it's powerful people or it's money or it's allegations like this. So I don't agree with these kind of allegations. Nawab Malik Sahab, who has made these allegations, he said it was when the country was in lockdown, which means 3-4 months back. So why was he keeping quiet for 3-4 months back when he knew about this extortion? It's not fair to talk like that about officers who are trying to do their job. Having said that, I do have questions about the way Aryan was arrested, about the other people also, not only Aryan, about the way they were arrested, the memo that was filed initially, the added charges later on, the WhatsApp chats which are ex-FSI, they are not prima facie because they are irrelevant to the Cordelia cruise. It was not at that time. Then the misinterpretation of the chats and the fact that the ASG appears before a sessions judge is an intimidating fact, and I think that is not right. And one more thing, the last thing, 2001 amendment was supposed to be a reformative approach, where the drug 64A was introduced. Retributive approach is not the correct way, and it serves no purpose. Keeping people in jail who have been drug users, as they are saying, but they haven't made a statement of whether his test reports have come positive or whatever. Secondly, there was no recovery from him. You're linking up all the people's recovery to Mr. Aryan Khan. If there was a recovery, you're saying that there was a mens rea, that he knew that the gentleman, Mr. Merchant, was carrying.
No, Ms. Kanika Sadanan, do you feel that this extra reliance on WhatsApp chats is something which perhaps raises doubts?
Yes, I absolutely.
And an investigation has to go beyond WhatsApp chats.
No, absolutely right, and that's what I'm saying. They have tried to club in everything only to keep him in jail, only to keep they've tried to club so many things together. And I think during the trial, this should be highlighted.
Okay.
And this is misuse of your power.
PKD Nambiar, before I come to you, on the Coup app, certain questions have been asked. Let's put them on screen. Karan has asked this question, why a child is suffering between a system and politics. There's another question. There have been very serious allegations against the NCB Zonal Director Sameer Wankhede, but till now the allegations levelled against him have not been properly investigated. Now, PKD Nambiar, I want to ask you this question. If we are talking law, then the law has to be the same for all. So if credentials of this NCB Zonal Director are important and must be factored in, as Mr. Narvekar is saying, and Kanika Sadanan also saying, because they fight the system day after day, then the credentials of an actor must also be factored in.
Well,
are they being treated as soft targets?
Well, Sanket, in 2021, that is this year, from January to July, there are almost 4,100 plus cases have been registered by NCB. Almost 2,800 plus kgs of heroin and rest of the other materials have been seized by various agencies and various agencies. Why only we are talking about Aryan Khan as a case? There are 8 more people have been arrested in this particular case.
No, by that logic, Shah Rukh Khan has released many movies. Lots of movies have been a roaring hit. Some
unfortunately,
of the movies have
in
flopped.
our country,
why are we only talking about the flops?
Sanket, unfortunately, we have in our country, we have one constitution and a law which is meant for everybody. There is no separate law for
I'm only extending your argument, Mr. Nambiar.
That's very fortunate.
There is no
we will talk about cases in point.
Can I mean, you haven't even at least show little patience what Mr. I wanted to make it. What I am saying is there are 4,000 plus cases have been registered only in this year. And in the Mumbai and the Goa, which is basically the place where we are talking about in the NCB's point of view, it's almost 90 cases in the last 3 months have been registered. Why we need to talk about only one particular case? If you are a celebrity's son, you will have all the media channels will be showcasing the sympathies, and I have all the sympathies for Aryan Khan. He's a young boy. He should not have been in this particular place.
Just flipping this argument around for an NCB. For an NCB, this gives great traction, doesn't it? I mean, they arrested so many people. There was no media. High-profile arrest, lots of media, lots of special attention.
Do you think that the national agencies require media attention? All this national, they are not like celebrity who wanted to be hiring a PR agency to be there.
Okay, Kanika Sadanan says why?
I think we should show some more respect to the national agencies, not make them as a part of a typical PR exercise, what they also do. I think that is a national disrespect. It is not about just disrespecting to one agency.
No, this is an agency.
This is
an agency where one officer has been accused of extortion. Now, this is also a serious charge. I would rather, in fact, will question the NCP as to why they are not moving beyond the press conference.
Before this bulletin, the ASG, Mr. Jain, has said that why this allegation is only on in the press
I agree.
brief.
I agree. So will you demand that the NCP? Will you demand that the NCP? Will you demand that the
file
NCP?
A defamation?
I definitely wanted to. I would say Nawab Malik should file a formal complaint.
No, Kanika Sadanan says Mr. Sameer Wankhede must file a defamation.
You can't have an argument on a television channel. You can't go and put an allegation. It's a very typical politician's allegation. It has no base. Is there any proof?
Rahul Narvekar, I will come to you and then Fauziya Arshi.
That will stop.
Rahul Narvekar, you see, Kanika Sadanan is saying if these allegations are false, imagine the gravity of this this situation
If
where
the allegations are true, on the contrary, if the
one
allegations
moment.
are true, what
Show
will all
your
these people
solidarity
you have
with
accused
officers
talking
who
about?
the
work
agency
hard.
has accused
Show
Aryan
your
Khan
solidarity
of being
so
a
you
drug
don't
peddler, a
demoralize
drug
other
pusher,
officers. File a case.
involved
Let the
in
central
an
government file a
international
case.
drug racket. Mr. Narvekar, conversely,
I've
the
got your
NCP
question.
has
Just to
accused
save the time of your viewers, I'll give you the answer straight away.
My point is, should they approach the court or not? Or will you,
No, I'll give you the
should the
answer.
agency file a defamation case?
I'll give you an answer to that. First of all, an action against defamation is wrong in personam, and therefore the person who's alleged to have been defamed will need to file that complaint. Number one. So it's not me, you, or anyone else.
So encourage him.
Can go ahead and do that.
Stand by him, show him solidarity,
Definitely.
so that other officers don't get discouraged, they don't get demoralized. Whether it's a police officer, IRS officer, IS officer, all of them will be boosted with this.
Madam, I have made it very clear time and again, me and my party stand by institutions in this country. We will support them to every extent that they need us to support them. Be rest assured about that.
For a person,
Let me not start talking about how institutions are being destroyed under the British
having
government.
said that,
Don't do this.
You are becoming the judge, you are the lawyer, you are everything.
One by one, please, one by one. I know it's all the big fight, but we don't have to fight.
No, one second. Mr. Manambir is making a personal comment against me. Mr. Manambir is making a personal comment against me.
I'm not making any personal comment. I am only saying
just now.
both of you have been such lofty,
arguments about demoralizing, about all this. So then you stand with your officer. Stand with your
already standing. People like you are not
encourage
standing.
him to file a defamation.
We are standing with the system.
Bring the person to the court. Why are you waiting for him?
Okay.
Why the court standing with the system?
He will keep
We
giving
supported
press
Okay, let me settle this. Let me settle this one by one.
one.
One more. Let me settle this. Mr. Narvekar.
It is not NCB who is supposed to give the bail.
Mr. Narvekar, should a defamation case be filed, or should the NCP move court?
To the best of my knowledge, what I have heard from media reports yesterday, and I've heard Mr. Wankhede on national television where he has very clearly said that he plans to initiate legal proceedings against the comments which have been made against him.
Otherwise,
and he's going to take legal recourse.
In the realm of
if at all he's going to do that, he's going to do that, he's well justified in doing what he is. And having said that,
similarly, NCP must also move court.
This entire facade, this entire allegation about liberty being compromised. Let me tell you, liberty is not an absolute right or absolute guarantee. Liberty can be called into question by following the due process of law. Now, can anyone on this panel tell me whether the due process of law has been followed or not?
Proof.
The due process of law has been followed. And
there was no possession on Aryan Khan.
Would be against the constitution. If there is, madam, please hold your horses and allow others to speak. We've heard you loud and clear. Please hang on.
You are giving wrong information, sir.
So when you get your chance, when you get your turn, you please correct me. Don't hackle people like this. We are having a civilized debate. Let's have a civilized debate.
One by one, please.
Don't give wrong information.
No, you can correct me when you have your turn.
So she's correcting. She's saying, you're saying that liberty is not absolute. She's saying, but there have to be correct charges.
What I am saying is, liberty is subject to due process. Liberty can be, the guarantee of liberty can be held back by following the due process of law, and that's what the Constitution says. And in the present case, can you tell me whether the due process of law has been followed or not? The NCB has got some tip. They have arrested the person. They have produced him before the judicial authorities. The judicial authorities, after considering all the facts on record, everything that is being debated on the show has been produced before the judiciary.
Before Kanika Sadanan responds,
they have granted custody.
Fawzia Arshi has been waiting patiently.
Just two lines. Just 2 lines, Sanket, please. Just 2 lines, please, Sanket, please.
Sure.
Due process of law, as per the NDPS Act, it's about possession. There was nothing on him. Nothing was found on him. They have given a false. They have given a false section in the Panchnama.
Please read section 37 and tell me what are the provisions under which bail will be granted.
My friend, that is on 27A and 29, which was incorporated. 29 was incorporated later on.
Don't mislead.
One second. Due process of law as per the NDPS is on possession. He had nothing on him. And so don't talk about you. They
I
have
don't-
clubbed
I
in
don't
so
have a
many
motive or
charges.
bias.
No, but then
Yes,
one moment.
here
Now
like
it
you.
is much. It is way more than just consumption of recreational drugs. It has now been made out to be a case of him being in touch
Trafficking,
with someone who
conspiracy.
may have connections with an international drug racket.
WhatsApp charges, which is ex faci, not even prima facie.
Yeah.
And so basically what you're trying to suggest now is that the institution investigating agency has acted malafidely.
Yes.
The judiciary has
Yes.
also acted malafidely. It's only you
The
and people
judiciary
who are
has been
supporting Lord
misguided.
Ryan are correct.
The officers of the
judiciary
court-
Okay,
has
my
been
point
misguided.
is that there are
biased
processes in the
judiciary
law to
misguided.
course correct also if something has gone wrong, and that is by way of appeal in a higher court, which is going to happen
Absolutely.
next week. Fauzi Arshi,
Absolutely.
I want to come to you now. You see, this is one aspect, right?
Yeah.
Whether
Yeah.
the high and mighty of Bollywood are vulnerable or not, or whether, they also have to, if they've done something wrong, they've got to face the music like anyone else. So these are two arguments. My point specifically to you, the question to you is, this eerie silence by all the, this huge yawning gap between what is happening and what Bollywood is not doing or not speaking. Do you think that this gets highlighted one controversy after another?
Yeah, of course. See, one has
The
to
silence
speak.
of the
People are
stars.
speaking. Yeah. See, the nation is understanding that what exactly is happening. Kanika ji, Sushil ji have said very rightly whatever they have said. I have been listening patiently to everybody, Rahul ji also. But here I would like to say why they are silent is because they are scared of something that they will be the next target if they speak up. I feel lack of, right to speak. And I don't find democratic environment going on in the country, not only on this matter, but lot of other matters. Like you are stopped, you are
9 p.m.
you
prime
are-
time,
you are-
TV, you are able to speak what you wanted? You are able to do it?
One minute,
one moment, Mr. Nambiar, no heckling,
when
please.
you were saying
Let her
I was
complete.
not
No, this
speaking.
is not right.
Straight away
Mr.
firing
Nambiar,
on
this
the-
is
And I would
incorrect.
like-
This is really,
Don't
really
do
bad.
Gupta
I will
Ji.
come back to you. If you have a counter, I'll give you a right to reply. Let her
And
speak.
here I
please.
would like to ask the Rahul ji and the other person. I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
Mr.
I don't
Nambiar.
remember Mr. Nambiar. That would you not like to question the government and the system why they are not reaching to the source? How the hell these drugs enter the market? What about that 3,000 kgs drugs which is found on the port, which is received by somebody, some biggie? That must not be a small man who has imported that, which is
Interesting.
found. You're not talking about that. You're not talking about that. And then one thing more, which is very, very important. Last year also, the Bollywood was targeted. In film industry was targeted. You guys target film industry because you get mileage. You become heroes by pinpointing them. Somebody who is, you only said the political analyst, Mr.
Nambiar.
Mr. Nambiar. Yeah, Mr. Nambiar. Mr. Nambiar, you were proudly saying that there are 8,000 cases which are you not ashamed of that why these 8,000 cases were filed? Why it was not stopped? Everyone knows that the drugs are coming from the borders, Punjab border and the
Okay,
other
so
borders.
Fauzi
Everybody
Arshi
knows
makes
what
a
is
very
happening.
important point
So
on
you
getting
have
your
to stop
priorities
that.
right.
Go to the source.
While
You're
yeah,
not
go to
talking
the
about
source, nip it in the bud, and don't let the problem fester. If you let
Yep.
the disease spread, then obviously there will be a problem. Rahul Narvekar and PKD Nambiar one by one. Mr. Narvekar, this is a very valid point. 3,000 kgs versus a few grams,
Yeah.
right? So far as the Mundra port investigation is concerned, we still do not know who was the kingpin. After all, who was handling a consignment of 21,000 crore rupees worth of drugs? Where is that Indian handler?
Sanketji, one thing more I would like to add, just one sentence. Also, I would like to say there are so many places, including Banaras, where you will find sadhus and a lot of people, youngsters with ganjas. They are consuming ganjas like anything. So, is there any definition in this country?
Okay,
that-
so you know what? See, the thing is, since here we are talking about a specific case which is under investigation, because otherwise if we start getting into comparisons, then it will be very difficult.
That should also be pinpointed.
If there is absolutely, if there is a specific case in point, otherwise it will appear like a generic comment that there this happens, there that happens. So in the eyes of the law, if there is any specific case in that area, we can talk about that. You know, otherwise it will become completely explosive. I know Mr. Narvikar and Mr. Nambiar will go off. Yes.
Yeah. Well,
Mr. Narvikar.
I absolutely agree with you that narcotics should be nipped in the bud, has to be eradicated from the system. But when is this going to happen? This is not going to happen by just going after the big fish and letting go of small consumers. This is going to happen when we have zero tolerance towards narcotics, whether 1 gram or 300 kgs. It has to be looked at with the same.
I'm talking about the alacrity.
It has to be dealt with an iron fist. And therefore, I think people who forward and extend this argument about chiller drugs, small quantities, 2 grams, 5 grams, 10 grams, should perhaps reconsider and understand that zero tolerance is the only way.
No, zero tolerance, but punishment commensurate to crime.
Allowing the people
no
to consume
one is
drugs
allowing.
From where
Why are you trying to tell me?
Okay.
See,
who is getting drugs in the country? Who is producing that drug?
We are not living in an idealistic world where there is no crime.
No.
These are things which are happening.
Who is bringing that drug to the consumer? The question is that there is a big chain. They do not.
I think the question is being. The question asked is about priorities. Would you like to finish the basic source from where the problem is?
Definitely. Every government would like to eradicate the very source, but that does not mean that till you eradicate the source, you should not act against perhaps small peddlers or small consumers.
The law very clearly says that the punishment will be commensurate to the crime. So for recreational drugs and the quantity, the act itself defines that if you are found in possession with X quantity, X punishment. Here it has become much more than the quantity now.
No, I don't think so. I think you've got the facts wrong. I think you've got
what is the fact? Sorry, I've learned this fact from the best of legal minds, by the way.
No,
so I want to understand.
I'm talking about facts, not the position of law. I'm talking about the facts of this case. You're talking about there's very minuscule quantity that has been recovered.
We have to talk about everything.
What has been recovered is about 58 grams of MD, which is considered to be commercial.
0.59, not 58. 0.59.
There is also substantial quantities which qualify as commercial use, which have been found, and therefore, and these are the facts. See, let me tell you. These are the facts which have all been argued
on merchants. Before the there court. Have been no commercial
and the court in its wisdom.
Okay, it's not the okay. One moment, Mr. Wadhwa has been patiently listening.
No,
I'll have to go to him also.
Just hear me out for a minute.
Before I come to all of you.
Hear me out for a minute.
Yeah.
All I'm trying to say is whether the system is right or wrong, whether the laws in place are right or wrong, is a debatable question. And the best person to interpret that is the judiciary, who will be able to interpret this. But it's not the NCB who has granted custody. They have asked for it. The judiciary has applied its mind to it, and thereafter come to a conclusion.
Okay, fine. I get the point. Very quickly, so Mr. Wadhwa. Mr. Wadhwa and then Mr. Nambiar.
So I've been listening to the whole conversation, and we went off topic to a great extent. The issue, as far as I'm concerned, is that is the NCB doing its job? Is it overdoing its job by keeping people like Aryan under custody for something as frivolous as so-called alleged charges of consuming drugs or being in possession of the drugs?
And what's that?
Neither of them is actually proven or very clear. So in my opinion, one has to also look at, one is the law. I'm not a law expert, so I'll not even venture into that space. Rahulji, Kanakaji are all experts in that space, so I will not venture into that. I apply simple logic and common sense. You look at the history of the guy. Has he been a history cheater? He's coming from a family of somebody who's paying hundreds of crores in taxes to the country, who's doing things to make the country proud. If his son goes and slips somewhere, I think the reform attitude with the laws prescribing should be applied to him. Why is he being given, or all people with him being punished for just being at a party where drugs were being served? Maybe they had it. and maybe they didn't. Let's prove it. Do the test, prove it, and take an approach where they are being reformed, not just put them behind bars just because he's some star son to make a scapegoat and an example
I
of
think
that.
that's a very important point. So we'll have to wait for next week to see what the High Court says after looking at the merits of this argument. Unfortunately, I've completely run out of time. We'll debate this ahead also on Monday, on Tuesday, when this matter comes up in a higher court. Thank you very much to all our panelists for joining us. Stopping for a short break at this moment. The big fight continues. Stay with us.